Yo guys, what's up? Welcome to the channel. We are jumping into MOCO again, and I wanted to do something a little interesting for you guys. I wanted to talk about a beginner gear guide. Now, I could do a beginner guide to MOCO, but frankly, I don't know how you guys have felt, but it's actually all quite self-explanatory. There isn't anything too crazy in MOCO that I don't understand thus far, or I think that most people wouldn't be able to grasp. Like, it's quite easy. You jump in, you smack monsters, there's different types of tasks to do, whatever. We might go into a bit more of a detailed guide about the best way to grind experience or the best kind of setups later on, but what I want to do now is talk about the gear that you will have unlocked to this point. This is like a beginner gear guide. Most of you will likely be at a similar spot to me. If you've been playing for 4 or 5 hours, you've probably got to a similar spot to me, which is reach level 16. Now, you'll hit level 14, it's 100k to level 15, and it's going to be even more to hit level 16. So you're probably at this stage where you're thinking, I've got to grind experience, and I don't really know all the gear that I've unlocked does. I've kind of been using the setup that I've liked from the beginning. This is kind of a time where I think we should talk through it, and we'll talk through some setups as well. So we're going to start off with the weapons. Now, the first thing to know about weapons is that weapons are not better the later that you unlock them. They all have different roles. They all do different things. Even the monster slugger that you get right at the start of the game is super powerful in the right setup, in the right context. The monster slugger, melee weapon, right? So now the monster slugger is your primary melee DPS weapon. There are 2 melee weapons that you'll get access to at this stage in the game. The first of which is the monster slugger, the second of which is the toothpick and shield. Now, the toothpick and shield is designed to be a tanking piece of equipment, which I'll talk about in a moment. For those of you not familiar with tanking, I will talk to you about that when we get there. This is your basic melee DPS weapon. Now, the monster slugger, what it is really good at is strong area of effect damage. You get area damage in front of you at close range, and then every 4th attack, which is a very quick combo attack, you are going to get a very big area of effect damage that also slows non-boss monsters. So what is the monster slugger good for? It's a really good speed farming weapon. I actually take the monster slugger in to maps if I just want to clear out lots of enemies in a very short period of time. I want to get some of my projects done. I want to speed farm experience, especially when you're not in like a challenging area. The trade-off with the monster slugger is that you sacrifice safety of range. So compared to like the techno fists or the wolf stick, you sacrifice that safety of range, which means when you're fighting unique or elite enemies or some of the larger boss monsters, you are obviously putting yourself in the firing line. And as such, you kind of have to invest in self-healing a little bit more. Now, I kind of get away with using vitamin shot and vampire tea for the most part for self-healing, but in some of the harder levels, you'll find that starts to become a bit more of a pain. So sometimes it may even be advisable to switch out and run something like the splash heal, which can be very strong in sort of like keeping yourself topped up. It's on a relatively short cooldown. That would be enough to keep you going. But the monster slugger, primarily my value with this weapon comes when you're jumping into a map, you just want to go through, clear lots of big bulks of enemies in one go. You just want to do a lot of area damage. That is what the monster slugger is primarily used for, and that's its kind of niche that makes it really good. So moving on to the techno fists. Ranged attack fires energy balls that bounce between enemies. It stuns smaller monsters, so you can kind of stun lock smaller packs of monsters, although I don't find that as valuable personally. And it's got a fairly big build-up combo attack that does a huge ball that bounces 10 times. Now, techno fists are kind of what I see as the hybrid between wolf stick and monster slugger. The techno fists give you the safety of range, but they give you some area of effect damage. Not as much area effect damage and not as much guaranteed area effect damage as Monster Slugger, because obviously bounces are limited, whereas Monster Slugger is just whoever you can hit in your cone attack. With Techno Fists, it's limited. So obviously, like the larger volumes of enemies, the less effective Techno Fists are going to become. However, they are a ranged weapon. The value of ranged weapon versus melee weapons in this game is that you don't need to invest as much in its healing to keep yourself safe. You have the safety of range. You can be more maneuverable around packs of enemies. You could be more maneuverable around the elite enemies and the boss enemies. That is where Techno Fists are valuable. Now, they give you more AoE than Wolf Stick, but they obviously don't give you as much single target damage. The other thing with, and the other mistake that I sometimes see people run with Technofists is they often run with stuff that requires like melee range to be good. So I see some people like running around with smelly socks, for instance, where that is not exactly, or even boombox, where you don't actually want to get in close when you're running these ranged weapons. You would rather use the safety of range. However, they're again another pretty good power farming tool. They are great hybrid weapons. The reason I like Technofists is they're really good from a hybrid perspective. There are some rifts that have a lot of AoE requirements, as well as the need to have high single target damage to burst down the boss. That is where I think Technofists come in with their value. They are better, in my opinion, and keep you safer in boss fights than something like a Monster Slugger, but they still give you the ability to clear out larger volumes of enemies. They also work incredibly well with Vitamin Shot because you can build up that 10th attack really quickly. In fact, anything, I just love Vitamin Shot. I think Vitamin Shot is one of the best gadgets in the game personally. But regardless, that's where I see the value of Technofists coming in as kind of like a hybrid weapon where there is some requirement for area effect damage, and also you want to maintain relatively strong boss damage as well. Generally good in smaller packs of enemies. You're not going to get as much value in an area of effect damage than you would do with the Monster Slugger, but very good rift weapon in a lot of scenarios because it gives you the ability to balance between being good at single target but also being strong AoE clear. Wolf Stick. Probably the most popular weapon that you'll see people running around with in the game for very good reason. It is a damn cool weapon. It is a single target and is the, in my opinion, or maybe not in my opinion, just the best single target damage weapon in the game. So if you're looking for pure boss damage, that is where the Wolf Stick comes in high value. If you jump into a rift, having one person at least with the Wolf Stick is going to guarantee some pretty solid boss damage. When you're running through the first few rifts, everyone's going to have a Wolf Stick because, frankly, tactics don't matter too much at that point. Now, single target damage at high range. Every sixth attack summons a big blue wolf to fight alongside you. That wolf then also has a small amount of swipe damage, area effect damage. Not a huge amount of damage, so it's not obviously as good at from an AoE clear perspective as things like the Technofists and the Monster Slugger. And then the wolf combo attack, every sixth attack, it deals a body slam. Again, this also works really well with Vitamin Shot. In fact, I don't know, there are almost no weapons in the game that don't work well with Vitamin Shot, if I'm honest with you. But the reason this works well with Vitamin Shot is Vitamin Shot not only heals yourself, it also heals your pet. It also gives your pet the same attack speed bonus that you get from yourself. So you and your pet will attack faster, and you'll also heal yourself, and it's just generally a really, really good combo with that particular gadget as well. The Staff of Good Vibes. Shoot your staff to heal friendly targets and damage enemies in front of you at long range. It's actually pretty respectable damage. They have actually made, in my opinion, I think they've actually made this weapon really good because they know that no one wants to play the bloody healer, and so they've made it so this weapon is actually really quite good. Every 10th attack is a 360-degree attack that heals more and deals more damage. Again, works incredibly well with Vitamin Shot. Generally, this is actually a really strong weapon. It's actually a really good solo weapon as well because that healing, you don't actually need to invest in that much healing outside of this weapon because you get a lot of decent healing coming out of it as well. It's also great in rifts. It's also great just when you're running around maps just to help help with large fights. It is a fantastic weapon. So yeah, generally kind of like the healer weapon. Not as good single target damage, obviously, as something like the Wolf Stick, but still very respectable damage. And again, also healing is very, very important. As you get through the later rifts, this is something that you should get used to using because having a healer in a rift becomes more and more important the further you go into the game. And the Toothpick and Shield. You poke your pick to deal area damage in front of you at close range. After you receive 15 hits from enemies, your next attack is an area slam that deals damage in a large area around you and stuns non-boss monsters. Its passive is that you take 25% less damage from all sources at all times. And again, a really great solo weapon. Pretty strong. I would actually almost say pretty strong over the Monster Slugger. Obviously not going to be as good in terms of damage output, but also pretty good at running into like very large packs of enemies. You're going to take 15 hits very quickly in those scenarios. You're going to build up the retaliate hit. You don't rely on a combo attack to make this good. And so therefore, this is not as strong with something like Vitamin Shot because you're not getting any value out of the increased attack speed realistically because your main source of damage comes from being hit. So Those are the 5 weapons. And this is, again, a tanking weapon. What I mean by tanking, by the way, is in these kind of games, well, we can talk about like RPG type games, a tank is someone that's designed to take damage. When you have a team of people and you want someone to take damage, they are the tank. They are the ones that are designed to soak up more hits so the rest of you can focus on dealing damage to the enemies that you're dealing with. Those are the weapons. Okay. Let's jump into gadgets. These are going to be a little bit easier to go through. Splash, heal. Used to sploosh yourself, instantly healing you and nearby targets in a large area around you. This is actually relatively self-explanatory. It's great in rifts, especially like it's a nice thing to splash when you're using something like the Monster Slugger. So if you want to take a Monster Slugger to a rift, this is going to keep you safer. It also gives you an extra way to support your team with a splash heal on a 16-second cooldown. And the heal is pretty significant. Does quite a bit of healing as well. It is not always necessary to take this in a solo mission. Often, most of the times, you don't need this, although it can be useful to get you out of pretty tough situations. I've often found that just Vampire Teeth and Vitamin Shot is enough, but realistically, still a very strong thing. In my opinion, the best weapon to take this with will be either the Toothpick or the Monster Slugger. This needs to go with a melee weapon primarily. It is deployed in a melee area, and it's always going to be benefiting the people that are closer to the threat. So this is best to take with a Monster Slugger, or it's best to take with a Toothpick. Smart Fireworks on a long cooldown, one of the longest cooldown gadgets. However, I absolutely love this gadget. Not only is it great at clearing out enemies in an AoE area, when there is only one single target, they all go onto that single target. So it's not only a great area of effect clear, it's also a really great single target burst gadget and can be used in a variety of situations. Very adaptable, really strong. You can use it in pretty much any setup. The only downside is it's a pretty long cooldown. So 20 seconds is one of the longest cooldowns in the game out of any of the gadgets. So you just have to be aware this is pretty long cooldown. However, very adaptable, can be slotted into practically any build. It's great in rifts. It's great in solo escapades as well, just running around maps. There isn't really a bad situation. It just comes down to your personal taste in the use of this gadget. I love it personally. I think it's great. Really great single target damage when you're dealing with some elite enemies, and also just really good at area effect clear. It says best when fighting large groups of enemies, but actually, frankly, it's also really good in single target scenarios as well. Boombox on a 12-second cooldown, so obviously lower than the Smart Fireworks. It also deals significantly less damage. You drop a 360 area damage and stunning non-bus enemies. This is, in my opinion, one of those items that's pretty good with the melee weapons. This does not function really well when you're using one of the ranged weapons, because frankly, you want to be up close and personal to make the use out of this. It's a pretty, I call this like a pretty good, like, little minion clearer. When you're like surrounded by a load of little dudes, like this is just what clears them out pretty quickly on a relatively low cooldown. The stun isn't that insane. It's pretty good at stopping like casts and charges from like chargers or spitters or whatever. But frankly, like, I don't love this gadget. I don't think it's that insane. I think there are better gadgets to run. The reason being is, like, if you're going to run an area of effect build, this doesn't really add to an area of effect build that much. You are better off running other gear that helps supplement some of your area of effect weapons rather than running this. Most of your melee weapons are going to have area of effect abilities. Stunning, if you're running Toothpick, is going to stop you getting hit and therefore, stop you being building your retaliate. With Monster Slugger, this can be pretty good, but again, your Monster Slugger is designed to deal a lot of area effect damage, and there are other ways to kind of boost your area of effect damage that don't rely on Boombox. However, it's a good amount of burst damage, does a decent amount of power when you drop it down. I'm not in love with it. I don't think it's great, but it definitely has its value at clearing out the little dudes. Vitamin Shot. My dude, literally my favorite gear. Like, there is... Obviously, I don't think this works well with Toothpick, but it works pretty well with every other weapon that you get in the early game. You increase your attack speed for you and your pets and heal yourself with you and your pets. Great for Wolf Stick. It's great for the healing staff. It helps you boost your combos, so you can get your combos out quicker. When you're running with Monster Slugger, it helps give you that extra little bit of sustain that you would otherwise lack if you're not going to run the healing orb, if you're not going to run Splash Heal. It is a great gadget that I think, frankly, is useful in pretty much every single weapon apart from maybe Toothpick. But otherwise, fantastic, self-explanatory, so good with Wolf Stick because your pet benefits as well. Yeah. Great gadget. Monster Taser. This is actually really cool. The reason I love Monster Taser is that it's a good single target damage splash, especially if you are running more of an area of effect focused build, and it is on a 5-second cooldown. So it's spammable. You can spam this loads. Really like a must-take to rift situations because of the single target damage that it provides, but also just really strong in running around rifts, also running around maps and clearing out some of the elite enemies and some of the larger enemies and small boss enemies that you meet there. I really love Monster Taser. I think it's great. This can, again, be splashed in pretty much any build. I would say, like, primarily good to, like, amplify the single target effectiveness of Wolf Stick, but frankly, I can run this with anything. Just depends on what you want to do. Pepper Spray, so you actually unlock this just as you hit level 14. Excuse me, just taking a drink. Used to spray enemies in a cone, dealing area damage multiple times and slowing non-boss monsters. It's actually pretty good. This is a good AoE clear. I actually prefer it to Boombox. I think if you're going to run something that gives you more area effect clear, this is only on a 2-second increase cooldown, and it does a decent amount of damage and generally just pretty strong at dealing with people that are also really good at like dealing with those enemies that are kind of running away, like chasing you from far away. I like Pepper Spray. I think it's pretty good. You know, again, there's a similar problem between these two where like there isn't that much need in this game to make your area of effect damage any more powerful, because you already get a lot of power from area of effect from your weapons itself, and then you have some of the passives that can be really useful to support that as well. But you know, depending on what passives that you want to run with, Pepper Spray can be pretty good. It's only on a 14-second cooldown, so pretty good in terms of supplementing your area of effect damage. But frankly, I just run Smart Fireworks most of the time, just simply because like they're good both single target and area effect, and you're only waiting around 8 more seconds or 6 more seconds to actually get access to them versus things like the Boombox and the Pepper Spray. So for the most part, I've never really felt like I've needed extra area effect if I'm going to be running Smart Fireworks, but still pretty strong, and again, just more supplemental area effect damage. All right, let's jump in to the passives. Auto Zapper. Zap a random enemy every 3 seconds, dealing damage and stunning non-boss monsters. This is frankly kind of useless unless you're running it into a boss, so that's why it says better in a single target scenario. I usually don't run this running around maps. Frankly, it doesn't do too much, but I might run this when I'm running a rift, just because that'll guarantee that the auto zapper starts, you know, focusing that target and making sure that we're getting boss damage down. So auto zapper, generally more of a boss focused, single target focused passive. I don't run this on a regular rift because frankly, you don't get much value out of it. Vampire Teeth. Your weapon attacks heal you and your pet's attack heals them. Great with Wolf Stick. I mean, this is frankly, apart from maybe the healing staff, this is frankly one of the better things that you can run in any build. Great with Monster Slugger because you don't get much self-healing. Great with Techno Fist to give you that little bit of an edge in terms of if you do take damage. Not necessary though, but also great with Wolf Stick. Even if you're ranged, your pet will heal every time they attack, and it can help sustain them and keep them alive a little bit longer. So I really like Vampire Teeth. Very like ubiquitously useful across pretty much any build that you want to run it in. Okay, so Smelly Socks. This is it's kind of interesting. It's only really good with melee weapons, because it's only around yourself. It doesn't affect your pet, for instance. So it's only around yourself. So it's going to be better with things like Toothpick, but also specifically with Monster Slugger. I use this with Monster Slugger in conjunction with Explode-O-Matic Trigger, just to amplify my area of effect damage a little more. It just means I can clear out very large packs of enemies in very, very quick succession. But this is not that useful with ranged weapons. Frankly, you don't want to be that close to enemies, and so therefore this is really only going to be used when you're using either Toothpick or your Monster Slugger, you know, at least at this stage in the game. Pretty self-explanatory though. It's a good like chip damage passive that can help support things like Explode-O-Matic Trigger or just some of your other area effect damage. Unstable Laser. 20% chance to shoot a laser beam from any enemy that takes damage from your weapon or your pets. Basically, you can... This will basically help support your area effect damage. I actually run Explode-O-Matic Trigger, Smelly Socks, and Unstable Laser in one go if I'm looking to clear out like very large packs of enemies. It's a great way of boosting damage and just, again, clearing large packs very quickly. But frankly, it's also not bad at single target. You know, if I was going to run a single target setup, I would run Auto Zapper, Unstable Laser, and probably something like Vampire Teeth to give me the extra sustain. But Unstable Laser is also good in both the single target and in AoE effect areas. So this is pretty much good with anything. in my opinion. It is also good with wolf stick because it affects the pet, so your pet is also going to be able to apply this as well. So even though it says this is best when fighting large groups of enemies, just because you know, clearly you're going to get more effectiveness if you're hitting large groups of enemies like Monster Slugger. So if you slug a load of people with your Monster Slugger, it is going to then, you know, have the higher chance of affecting them. It's also pretty good when dealing single target damage. It also, you know, it will add an extra little bit of single target damage on top of Auto Zapper. So Unstable Laser and Auto Zapper together are pretty strong. Explodomatic Trigger. If you or your pet deal a finishing blow to an enemy, they will explode, dealing area damage around them. This basically is your key to chain reaction blowing up entire large groups of enemies. Explodomatic Trigger, if you're looking to just go in pure AoE focus, you have to run Explodomatic Trigger. And again, it's pretty good. There is two really cool things about this. It is really good when amplifying your area of effect builds, like running Monster Slugger in conjunction with Smelly Socks and like Vampire Teeth or even Unstable Laser. However, it's actually pretty good at making your single target weapons be a little bit more effective in an area effect setting. So for instance, with Techno Fists, which aren't as strong AoE, this can help make the AoE a little stronger from them and help them blow up larger packs of enemies. With Wolf Stick, obviously with pets also being impacted here, this can be much more supportive in helping you get through the larger packs of smaller enemies, where that's where Wolf Stick tends to struggle because of its single target nature. So this is a great, I take this on every single setup realistically when I'm going into a normal map and I'm just going to be grinding out the monsters. That's why, you know, I think it's really good in that setting. R&B Mixtape, heal yourself and nearby friendlies around you in the area. So this is actually pretty good. It's actually, you know, not as strong, obviously, than Vampire Teeth, because, you know, that Vampire Teeth is good when you hit the enemy, but it is good to passively heal yourself up. You know, one of the things that I do use this for is, you know, for instance, if I'm running Monster Slugger and I can't get close to the enemy because I feel like I'm going to die, I'll drop the R&B Mixtape and I'll be running around just passively healing up, waiting for a chance to get back in, use it in conjunction with Vitamin Shot just to passively heal myself up. It's also really, really good in Rift scenarios, just to take as a little passive, extra little healing passive that you can run with your team. It's pretty good, you know, with Splash Heal and this, that's going to be enough for you to be kind of like an off healing support. So if you want to be like a damage dealer, but you want to run a little bit of healing, then you can run Splash Heal and R&B Mixtape, and that should be enough to kind of get you through most Rifts as like a DPS with an off heal of support. So yeah, that is pretty much all of the gear explained a little bit more in detail. I'm loving this game, guys. Like, if you want to join me, please feel free. I don't think I've got any codes left. No, I don't have any codes left, but if you want to add me in game, feel free to add me. I don't have any friends, so that would be great. I don't know how to find my my code. My ID is Excoundrel. My hunter tag at the top there. If you want to add me, my hunter tag's right there. Guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.